everybody? What's good with you? All right. Here we are, everybody. I am GreenBean, and this is episode 102 of GreenBean's Jets Pod. I could not be more excited to be here with you. I have to admit, it's a little bit weird today. It is. I'm going to tell you why. I'm not right. The right side of my face is doing a thing, everybody. I found out yesterday that I have something called Bell's palsy. Now, it's not new to me. I've known many people who've had it over the years, but this is the first time I had it. I went to the hospital yesterday to check out. Look, my face is numb. It's doing a thing. I want to make sure I'm not having a stroke. So we did the whole thing, MRIs and everything, and I have Bell's palsy. So let me show you something. Here's how I knew. First of all, I was trying to eat with a spoon, and I just feel, I'm like, something's up with my face. Something's new. This is different than what I'm used to. And then brushing my teeth, I couldn't spit. Like, you know when you're at the dentist and it just felt like that, trying to do that. But then this is what did it. I'm a whistler. You guys might not know that. I got two ways I whistle. One is I whistle all day. The other one is this. I do a regular whistle. And this is what it looks like. You ready? Here, check it out. See? I can't, it doesn't, see the right side of my face? It doesn't respond. It doesn't respond. So, hey, I'm here. I'm happy it was not a stroke, everybody. I'm certainly not going to minimize Bell's palsy. It's a neurological thing. Hopefully it'll be gone in a week. But I will say this. I am incredibly grateful that that's what it was. Hey, I'm having a rough week. I had food poisoning last week. I asked if it could be connected. They said, we don't know. That's what they said. Who knows? Probably not, but who knows? You know, maybe the melon did it. I don't know. But guys, I'm alive. I have Bell's palsy, so try to forgive. It's particularly the letter F, and I just learned the letter P that I'm having problems with. So you'll hear it throughout the show. Help me out. Just deal with it with us, huh? Let's just ride through this one together. No matter how you slice it, episode 102 is a big deal. We do have a number 2 on our team, so we're going to take a look at that guy in our player profile. We also have, interestingly enough, we're going to look at the top 3 options to replace our player profile today. It's going to be interesting. And then we have what I think might be a compelling intelligent gripe. So how's that sound? There we go. Before we get into that, a couple short things. One is, guys, the best thing you can do for the channel is twofold. It comes with this. Hit that little thumbs up button. Greatly appreciated. And then right after that is the subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it is greatly appreciated. Very, very simple. The little button that says subscribe, click, and it's over. You never got to do it again. It's just so easy to do, and it is greatly appreciated on this end. If you're looking for increased access to this guy right here, you can join the Beanbaggers, my excellent Patreon group that we do all sorts of fun things together. And you can join that by looking in the description of the video. There's a link that says join the Beanbaggers. It helps support the channel. It is greatly appreciated, and you get bonus content and access to yours truly. It's a good time. I love my Beanbaggers. And the other thing you can do, if you want to add to your live stream experience, you can join the Stream Beaners. That's only one tier. Nice and easy. You'll see the join button below the video. Go ahead and hit that. You get additional emojis and a free super chat from the member side of things and some other stuff as well. And that's just to enhance your live stream experience. As you know, we do that all the time. I got to be honest. I haven't talked this much since I've had this. I'm already fatigued. It's weird. It's like I can't quite control my face. Hopefully it's not too weird for you guys. But so guys, one thing I do want to acknowledge the sponsor of this very episode of GreenBean's Jets Pod. You know and love them. It's Manscaped, the #1 below the waist men's grooming tools. But did you know they came out with something new, brand new that applies to this right here? Let me show you. Now, I've been using the oil, but I stuck it back in here because I love the way it looks. I want to show you. This is the new beard care kit from Manscaped. Look at this. Here we go. Oh, The Beard Hedger Pro. Let me get that out of there. The Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Look at that. You got the balm. You got the oil. That's what I've been using right there, the oil. You got the shampoo, the comb, the brushes, and a brand new buzzer. Look at this thing. Look at the buzzer. Oh, my God. It's so cool. Look at that thing. Yeah, and you adjust the lengths and stuff with the little wheel there. Makes it nice and easy. Guys, I love it. You can get this and all the famous Manscaped products by clicking the link in the description or just heading to manscaped.com. And at checkout, if you feel like saving yourself 20%, you use the promo code GreenBean, and that will be taken off for you immediately. And as always, the promo code comes with free international shipping. Guys, they're the best products on the market, and you can save 20% with using the promo code GreenBean. What's better? New beard kit, man. Don't play games. It's the good stuff. I'm excited about it. Clearly, I have need for such products. But guys, there you go. So let's get right into our player profile of the week. Episode 102. It's kind of hard to find players that are wearing the number 102 with that cap on the number 99 in the NFL rules. So let's look at number 2. That makes a lot of sense. We did Sauce Gardner last week. This week, we are jumping right on our young buck quarterback, the number 2 overall draft pick. Who wears the number 2? None other than Zachary Capono Wilson. Did you know that was his middle name? Capono. What an interesting little middle name there you got there, Zach. So here's the thing with our boy Zach. There was a lot of hubbub coming along with this guy when we drafted him. Now, some of us out here weren't necessarily enamored with Zach Wilson, but a lot of Jets fans were. The conclusion was that Zach Wilson is a hybrid of Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Oh my God. If you could get that, what would be better than Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes having like a hybrid child and as good looking as Zach Wilson? It hasn't worked out that way so far. Zach Wilson, as we know, has struggled. He has struggled mightily, starting with his first game as a New York Jet, the first home opener. We went in there all excited, watched him throw 4 interceptions. He's had his moments. He has shown that he's got the talent that made him the number 2 overall pick. He's got the arm strength, the mobility. He's got the intelligence, the work ethic. For whatever reason, and there are myriad reasons we could look to, whatever it is, the guy's got something going on up here. He's tentative. He's afraid. He's off. And the team is starting to get a little bit untrusting with Zach Wilson, especially when there's so much talent all around. So we watched an interesting thing this year where he was benched. Our starting quarterback was benched for Mike White. Mike White came in, performed better, but then he struggled as well. Now, look, Zach Wilson, his career looks like this. He's 23 years old, as we know. He's 1999 in August, so he'll be 24 when the 2023 season begins. He'll be a 24-year-old. He's 6'2". He's 214 pounds, 345 completions for 625 attempts. He's got 55.2% completion percentage for his career, a total of 4,022 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. He also has 67 sacks, guys, for a loss of 545 friggin' yards. Could you imagine if we had that 545 back? Could you imagine even if he just got a yard, just took off and got a yard? Now, a lot of the sacks are not his fault, but as we know, he's known to create pressure for himself with his tentative nature and all that. So a lot of those sacks are him as well. And the yardage, running backwards and all that kind of stuff. Zach has had himself a difficult time. So much so that we're going to get into the top 3 potential replacements for Zach Wilson. Now, here's the thing. This regime, all the way up to Woody Johnson, who just said this very week, Zach can be salvaged. He does not believe Zach Wilson is done, but Robert Saleh has said it. Joe Douglas has said it. Now, look, we know that coach and GM speak is just what it is. It doesn't really mean anything, but they really do seem to be behind him. And again, he's 23 years old and has all the tools. So if you can put him in the background. You know, Mike LaFleur came out a couple months ago and said, maybe we should have had him. Maybe we should have taken a different route with this guy. Maybe you shouldn't have put 1,100 plays on his desk and said, figure it out. Maybe. But no matter how you slice it, they're gonna push him into the background, and it really does look like they're gonna take a shot at developing him, get the vet in here, and keep him around and see if he can maybe replace the vet in a couple of years and have shaken off whatever this bugaboo is that he's got for being successful in the NFL. Now, again, Zach has had his moments, but it's not really enough to outweigh the negatives. I mean, this kid has had a very, very tough time in the NFL, so much so that a lot of those people who were passionately behind the Zach Wilson selection are now using that to say that Joe Douglas is a bum. He sucks. So it's a tough gig out there. That all being said, I do think his career is not written. He's not looking good. I am in favor of moving on and trying to capitalize on this team that we do have. There's so much young talent on this team. I'd hate to see us kind of flounder it, waiting for this guy to somehow just get through it. I think putting him in the background, giving him some resources to just develop him, take the stress and pressure off him. I think there's a shot, and we'll get the quarterback in here, win some games. Maybe he can see that and learn from that, and it can all be beneficial. Maybe when he's 26, we got ourselves a fresh young quarterback with NFL experience and a lot of time to develop. So there he is, Zach Wilson. How do you feel about Zach Wilson? Are you done? You think we should just move on? Like we did with Sam, like enough. Just if you can get a pick for him and just move on. Or do you think that they're taking the right road if they do, in fact, bring on a vet and develop Zach in the background? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious where you are now that the heat of the season has kind of died down. You know, our feelings are able to, calm down a little bit, right? We're a little bit less, and then you can start to think when the emotions, the anger, the sadness, the disappointment, when it all settles a little bit, you can start to think a little bit more and go, you know what, maybe on second thought, like that. So let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you think. Now, guys, as we know, the Jets made some moves this week, which could lead us to other moves that are getting people excited. To dive into that, let's get a hold of the news of the week. The Jets, while we're not in the championship games this week, we made some headlines. Number one being we signed our offensive coordinator. Now, signing Nathaniel Hackett gives everybody a little bit more of an understanding which directions we might want to go. It's hard to predict which quarterback or which systems and everything when you don't even know who the coordinator is going to be. So now we know who that is. Not only do we know that, right on the heels of Hackett getting signed, we signed Keith Carter, the offensive line coach, who is very successful as an offensive line coach. Top 5 in rushing the last bunch of years, top 5 in red zone. Seems to be a good hire, right up the alley that we want, because where did we struggle? Red zone. Rushing. That's where we, in addition to quarterback. So we had a major problem getting in the end zone. Hackett and Carter are in, and that gives us the ability to start to say, which kinds of quarterbacks would work well with a Nathaniel Hackett? Okay. So we have a top 3. There's all kinds of guys, right? We did the Lamar Jackson thing. John Harbaugh basically came out. The coach of the Ravens said, listen, stop it. He's our quarterback. We have an offensive coordinator opening. Lamar Jackson's going to be in the mix discussing who we'd like to bring in. They got rid of Greg Roman. And he said, stop it. He's going to be our quarterback. There's a 200% chance, I think he said. So that kind of cooled the Jets on Lamar Jackson. And now we're looking at a few other guys. So the whole batch aside, it includes guys like Tannehill and Baker Mayfield and Minshew. But the top 3 really are Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, they all come with benefits, but they all come with deficits as well, with reasons that you might be concerned of bringing them on. The good news all three of those quarterbacks played in a similar system that Hackett likes to run. And Aaron Rodgers, as we know, actually played 3 years with Nathaniel Hackett. So that's a benefit of Aaron Rodgers. And let's dive into him first, right? Why not? So the number one of the top three is none other than Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Statistically, you can't argue it. He's 39 years old, though, so he's about to broach 40 in December of next year. So his birthday is December 2nd, which means he's a Sagittarius, which is very, very beneficial. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. He's 6'2", 225 pounds, and the guy is nothing short of a legend, all right? Like, we can call it what it is. He's known as a bit of an asshole. He doesn't really take any crap. He's got a little bit of edge to him. A lot of people don't like him. He does discount double checks, all that sort of stuff. But the truth is he is a legendary quarterback with just uber talent, and he plays at a certain level throughout his entire career. Now, interestingly, with Aaron Rodgers, he didn't play the first 3 years of his career. He sat behind Brett Favre, which makes this potential trade wacky because Brett Favre was traded to the Jets to give Aaron Rodgers the ability to be their starting quarterback up there in Green Bay. So isn't it interesting that now the Jets are talking about bringing Aaron Rodgers over? So look, one of the benefits of Aaron Rodgers, it could be seen as a negative, but it's a benefit too. He's expensive, but he's not as expensive as he looks. Peter King came out and said he's $48.2 million over the next 2 years. What is it, 15 this year and then the remainder in 2024. Not too bad when you're thinking about a quarterback of his caliber. It's not the $50 million that you were going to have to pony up for Lamar Jackson or what have you. So 48.2 or 0.3 over 2 years, not too bad. Now, his career numbers, like I said, are insane. He's got a career of 65.3% completion percentage, a 59,055 total yards, 475 touchdowns with 105 interceptions. So that's just over 4-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. So, I mean, it's insane. Now, last year, he had a dip. He had a noticeable dip, which could be attributed to Nathaniel Hackett leaving, huh? What do you think of that? Maybe Nathaniel Hackett left and Aaron Rodgers couldn't deal. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know up from down without Hackett. Now you want to get them together. Maybe that had something to do with it, but I also would include that they traded away Devontae Adams, his number one wide receiver, and they brought in a bunch of rookies. Talented as they may be, they're rookies, and he famously said last year, like, I'm old, my body hurts, and I'm surrounded by children. Like, that's why I have an attitude, all right? I'm old, I hurt, and I'm surrounded by children, and he's not wrong. So Aaron Rodgers has been playing since 2008, even though he was drafted in 2005. But last year was one of the lower years. He had a down year for sure. His stats were as follows. He had a 65.3% completion percentage. Remember, this is a down year for him. Completion percentage is hard to say. 64.6% completion percentage. He had 3,695 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So again, he still had over 2-to-1 TDs to picks, which is something that we haven't seen here. I mean, we haven't even seen more touchdowns than picks in far too long, quite frankly, since I think Fitzpatrick, maybe McCown, I'm not sure, but we haven't seen it in the last 4 or 5 years. We always have more interceptions than touchdowns. It's hard to win that way. I gotta say, you know. So again, this was a down year for him, but if you look around, there are numerous reasons why that could be. Like, so many variables come into play that you could make the argument that he's dipping. And look, I was one that said it looks like he's dipping. It's not something to just overlook. At the same time, when you just stop and look at the whole story, there's lots of reasons why his performance could have gone down. But again, his down year is significantly better than what we've been getting from our quarterbacks period. I mean, again, Zach Wilson over his 2 years has just over 4,000 yards. He had 3,700 in a down year. Again, 55% completion percentage for Zach. His down year, 64.6% completion percentage. So another great thing about Aaron Rodgers is that he comes with a history of being healthy, being available. He only played less than 15 games a season 2 times, 2015 and 2017. So the last time that he didn't play a full season was 2017. He had the back-to-back MVPs just 2 years ago, man. So he's only really 1 year removed from back-to-back MVPs. So there's a lot of reason to believe that he's still got the chops. There's a lot of support behind the idea that he's got the chops. The downside to him is the age. And again, that down year could be indicative of the beginning of the end. He is about to turn 40 years old. He'll play most of the season as a 39-year-old, but he's going to turn 40 before the season is over. So there's Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people think that the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett is all but ensuring that Aaron Rodgers is the choice. Robert Saleh is on record saying quarterback was the number one subject in all of our offensive coordinator interviews, but we did not bring up one name. My ass, Saleh. Come on. You got to be better than that, dude. We talked about quarterback and that was our number one subject to discuss. No. We didn't discuss we didn't discuss one quarterback. Baloney. So that they talked about Aaron Rodgers with Hackett, probably other quarterbacks. I'm going to say that this top 3 was on the table for their discussion, but a lot of people out there, Connor Hughes, are making statements like, look, Hackett could have sat on the beach this year. He's under contract. He's going to get paid by the Broncos. He could have taken a break, kind of, collect himself and see what went wrong and the whole thing, and then, slowly come back next year. But instead, he decided to come right back in, and not just right back in the NFL, to the meat grinder, to the gauntlet of the New York Jets fans and media, and with our history of problems. And don't forget, we chewed up his dad and spit him out under the Herm Edwards regime. So there's a lot of reason that, why would he come here for all that if he didn't know who his quarterback was? That's the insinuation. So Aaron Rodgers just might be on the table, is a valid and viable option. The other thing is you're going to have to trade for him. Peter King says we're looking at something like a first and maybe a second first. But the second first could be something based on performance or what have you, because again, he's $40 million. I mean, he's 40 years old and he's going to be $48 million. So you got to factor that into any trade negotiations. But hey, you willing to give up the 13th pick for Aaron Rodgers? I got to admit, while I love having picks in the draft, I can't have enough. I got to say I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a pick, the 13th overall pick this year, maybe a second next year, or if he makes it to the playoffs, something like that. We give him a first. I don't care. Getting Aaron Rodgers in here, I'm willing to give up a couple picks, and not for nothing. That's probably option A, number one option, if you're believing the idea that we're going to develop Zach Wilson behind a quarterback for a couple of years. Because Aaron Rodgers more than likely has 2 years left, 2-3 at the max. So if he's going to do that, you can engage Zach's 5th-year option, keep him around. When Aaron Rodgers leaves, you put Zach back in, and they're good buddies, and they talk all the time and all that jazz. So it does seem like a perfect fit. Aaron Rodgers with Nathaniel Hackett, Zach Wilson, the whole thing. It just seems to make sense. And again, the picks and the money are not exorbitant, and Joe Douglas will probably figure out a trade that's at least most beneficial to us. So there you go. Now let's jump into quarterback 2. Number 2 on the list is number 1 on a lot of people's list, but number 2 on ours. Let's talk about Derek Carr, the Raiders quarterback that for some reason has just droves of people who have no interest in him. It really boggles the mind when you look at it, especially fans of a team that we haven't even gotten barely 3,000 yards out of a quarterback in forever. For some reason, a lot of Jets fans just don't like this guy, and we're trying to figure out ways. We talk about the 7 losses in 9 years in temperatures under 35, or, the overall record, the fact that he hasn't made the playoffs all that much. Definitely part of the equation, but certainly not enough from my vantage point to push this guy out of the equation. Certainly not. Now let's take a look. Derek Carr is a 6'3", 210-pound quarterback out of California. All right, he's March 28th, 1991. That makes him 31 years old. He'll be 32 at the beginning of next year's season. So he's already, 8 years younger, 7.5, 8 years younger than the other guy we spoke about, Aaron Rodgers. So that's a positive. The other positive with him, talking about his age and his health and everything, up until he was benched this year by head coach Josh McDaniels, Derek Carr has missed a total of 2 games in the 9 years that he's been an NFL quarterback. 2 games. We have not seen anything like that in forever. Honestly, I can't even remember the last time a quarterback was healthy the whole season. Doesn't even make sense to me. Missing 2 games in 9 years is quite the feat. He's got a total of 142 games played in the NFL, 64.6 career completion percentage. That's just under 65 for those who were wondering, which is kind of the goal, everybody. That's kind of that's where you want to be. 65% completion percentage is really the target. He's got a total of 35,722 yards, 217 touchdowns, 99 interceptions. So that's just over 2-to-1 touchdowns to picks. Not bad, man. Fantastic, quite frankly. Not quite Aaron Rodgers with 4-to-1, but 2-to-1, a little over 2-to-1 is pretty damn good. Now, last year is interesting. A lot of people wonder, why would a head coach bench a quarterback if he's all that great? Why? Why would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. There's got to be more to the story here. Well, let's take a look at the story for a brief moment and see if there's more to the story. The story goes back further than you think. Let's go back to 2009. Josh McDaniels got his first head coaching gig opportunity for the Denver Broncos in 2009. Now, the quarterback for the Broncos was a 3-year starter, young stud Jay Cutler. Now, Jay Cutler, the year before McDaniels got there, had stats that looked like this. He had a 62.3% completion percentage, but he had 4,526 yards, 25 touchdowns to 18 picks. That's a robust batch of stats to be bringing to the fray. Obviously, there was lots of difficulties and problems in Denver at the time, so it wasn't enough to make them any good. They fired the coach and they brought in Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels' first order of business was to take his 4,500-yard quarterback and trade. He had a trade deal, reportedly had a trade deal set up with his former team, the Patriots, to bring Matt Castle over. Now, Matt Castle was the guy behind Tom Brady when Tom Brady blew out his knee that one season. Castle came in and got them 11 wins, I think it was. So he played very, very well under McDaniels. So McDaniels probably thought, hey, I want to bring this guy over here. The trade didn't go through. It fell apart. Cutler said that Cutler's on record saying that McDaniels is kind of shady. I didn't trust him. There was some weird stuff going on with the trade, and it didn't happen. So what ended up taking place is that they traded Jay Cutler to the Bears for Kyle Orton, a first and third in 2009, and a first-round pick in 2010. Now you'd think, okay, well, he's going to draft his quarterback. You bring Kyle Orton over, he's okay, he's decent, but you want to get a young guy in here and groom your own quarterback. Nope, he doesn't do that. He uses the picks on running back Noshawn Marino, and defensive end Robert Ayers is who we picked with the Chicago pick. So he just goes into the season with Kyle Orton. He gets rid of 4,500-yard Jay Cutler. Again, young, man. This guy was known as one of the young up-and-coming quarterbacks. He doesn't want him. He can't bring his quarterback for whatever reason, but he still gets rid of Denver's quarterback, and he brings on Kyle Orton and just decides in the draft, I'm not going to replace him. Now, Kyle Orton wasn't a slouch. He did okay. In 2009, he had 3,802 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So not exactly something to complain about. And you can see having the argument like, hey, maybe I don't need to use a pick on a quarterback. So there is that argument. But in 2010, you know what he does with the other Bears pick? Just so you know who we're talking about. He uses the first round pick on a quarterback finally, but he drafts Tim Tebow. That's the guy that brings Tim Tebow into the league with the first round pick. Remember, there were arguments that Tim Tebow wouldn't even get drafted or that he was a mid-round pick. Maybe he's a fullback. The Josh McDaniels Denver Broncos used their first round pick on Tim Tebow. We know how that ended up. So again, when you look at the decision by Josh McDaniels to bench Derek Carr for the last 2 games of the season, there's a lot more to it. If you look at his track record, what he did in Denver. And let's not forget, he accepted the head coaching job with the Indianapolis Colts a few years back. He accepted the job and then reneged and said, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to take it. That's when the Colts had to go scrambling. They ended up hiring Frank Reich, but they lost out on other top candidates because they thought they had their head coach. So he's kind of a little bit of what we would call a shitbag, okay? He's coming in, he's just ruining stuff for the sake of ruining it. He did it in Denver, he blew it with Indy, and then now he did the same thing with the Raiders. So it's not as simple as it seems. Now, looking at Derek Carr specifically, you think Josh McDaniels, whatever he is, you can certainly see a lot of maybe reasons that aren't based on his performance with Josh McDaniels. He just wants to do what he wants to do for whatever reason. Well, let's take a look at Derek Carr's experience in the NFL. He's had 4 head coaches and 6 offensive coordinators in his 9-year career. Let's also remember that he's had some of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. This is real. Derek Carr famously played with some of the worst offensive lines in the NFL throughout his career. He also never had higher than the 20th overall ranked defense. Now, through all that, he's pretty much got an average of 4,000 yards a season. Just about every season, it's like 3,900 yards, 4,200 yards. The year that John Gruden had all that drama and got kicked out of the league and everything, in addition to his wide receiver Henry Ruggs having the DUI, which killed somebody and he went to jail, throughout all that mayhem, Derek Carr still found a way to get 4,800 yards with a 68.4% completion percentage, 23 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Got his team to the playoffs. Now, they didn't win, but why? Because they have the 28th ranked defense and the offensive line. There's a lot to it. Again, and that was his 5th offensive coordinator, too. So he's proven that he can switch systems, personnel. His output remains very consistent. Derek Carr is going to give you top 10 output no matter the situation. Personnel changes, tough offensive line, defense dips, doesn't matter, new coaches, all that sort of stuff. Him coming over to the New York Jets would lead you to believe, if you base it on his past experience and output, that he's going to be able to have a smooth transition coming over here and playing with Nathaniel Hackett for the first time. So Derek Carr is another really good option. Now, here's the interesting thing about Derek Carr. 2023, he will have a cap hit of $34.8 million. So higher than Aaron Rodgers this year, which could be difficult to fool around with, but not exorbitant. Again, not Lamar Jackson, not what we were talking about being willing to give up in that direction. The $50 million, even 45. 34.8 is near the top, but not at the top of the quarterback pay scale these days. But the really interesting thing is that if he's on the Raiders roster after February 15th, the Raiders are on the hook guaranteeing him the $34.8 million plus $7.5 million of their 2024 cap. So if they keep him on the roster after February 15th, he's going to give them dead cap money for 2 years. And $7.5 million in comparison to $30 million isn't a lot, but $7.5 million is a lot of money to just not be able to use. So they're looking like they would be motivated to do something with him, to take a trade for Derek Carr, rather than just letting him walk. And they can. They have that out. They can let him walk. But you'd think even if they could get a 4th, you'd take the 4th as opposed to just letting him walk. The only caveat is that Derek Carr has a no trade clause, so he's going to have to agree to anything. He could say, screw you. Hey, man, the Texans are offering us 5 first-round picks. I don't want to go to the Texans. Sorry. It's that easy. They cannot send him anywhere that he doesn't want to go, and that's pretty good for Derek Carr. So there you go. So we got Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. Now, who's the third guy? Oh, you could look in a couple directions, but really the end of the top 3 consists of a guy who his output, his performance, his stats, great. But he's almost never available, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo, the second-round pick of the Patriots. Now, very similar to Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy G didn't play his first 3 years. He sat behind another great, Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. Jimmy G sat behind Tom Brady. So he got his first real starting work for the Niners. Jimmy G is a 6'2", 225-pound quarterback. He's a 9-year vet, 31 years old, November 2nd. So he'll be turning 32 in the middle of the season next year. Played for 9 years, very similar to Derek Carr, right? But while Derek Carr missed 2 games in that stretch, Jimmy G has only played a full season once, one time. And that was in 2019. Now, what do his stats look like in 2019? If Jimmy G stays on the field for you, it could look like this. He had a 69.1% completion percentage. Again, that's stellar. 2,978 yards. Not the best, but they had a running game and all that jazz. So 3,000 yards, solid. 27 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Great stats. Getting that output, you can clearly see if he's only got 3,000 yards and he's got a 70% completion percentage, that's because the offense is leaning more toward the a run heavy offense. It's all well and good. Now, his career stats are good enough as well. He's got a 67.6% completion percentage of 14,289 yards and 87 touchdowns to 42 interceptions. Now, again, just a tick over 2-1. Good enough. Fine. We'll take it. That's fantastic. Again, the problem is he's injured almost every year. This very year, I was talking about it a few minutes ago with our boy Josh Johnson playing for the Niners. Why is that? Because Jimmy G couldn't make it past 10 games and Brock Purdy had to come in. So now this season, he still looked pretty good. He had a 67.2% completion percentage, 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He was having one of his more efficient seasons, quite frankly, looking very, very good. But again, it doesn't matter how talented you are if you never play a full season. So when you look at these guys, you got Aaron Rodgers. Only 2 times in his entire career has he not played the full season. Got Derek Carr. He's missed a total of 2 games in his 9 years. And then you got Jimmy G, whose percentages are higher. The touchdown ratios are on par. He looks like he could be the best option, but he's only played a full season once. So what would give you the reason to bring Jimmy G on? Well, you don't have to give away any draft picks to get him. He's a bona fide, unrestricted free agent. So where, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's going to cost at least a first, probably somewhere around 2. Derek Carr could be anywhere as high as a first, but could be a second, could be a third. Again, the Raiders probably got to try to move fast and get this done before February 15th. So that could help. But then there's Jimmy G, who you don't have to give any picks away. His market value, at least as far as Spot Track is saying, is $34.9 million. So that's right in the same pocket as a Derek Carr. Same, as far as the cap hit, that's going to be similar. But again, the fact that you're not giving away any picks could be alluring enough that you just hope that you can get that full season at him. I'm a little bit too nervous to do that. I would hate to see us do all this work and put all this stuff, all these ducks and eggs in this one basket, and then the guy we base it all on makes it 8 games. That's not what I want to see. So Jimmy G spooks me a little bit. But there you go. Now, which one of those guys do you want to? I mean, is there one that rises more than the others? Look, Aaron Rodgers, he's only going to be here a couple of years, and that could be good if you believe in Zach, right? That could be the best option if you believe in Zach. If you bring Derek Carr on, it's more than likely going to be longer term. So Derek Carr's the idea is probably going to be that he's your quarterback for the next 7 to 10 years. So it's different. That kind of puts Zach on the outside looking in. Jimmy G, probably have him for a bunch of years, and he's same age essentially as Derek Carr. But again, the downside really is his availability. I think you have no problem. His output, if he's going to play 15 to 17 games a season, fantastic. That's no problem. Again, his backstory would lead you to believe that he can't do that. He's only done it once, and that was 4 years ago. So you got to let me know which one you like, because that is the news of the week. So I'll tell you, man, talking about quarterbacks and talent all over the team coming up on the Senior Bowl and the draft and all that jazz, it really is just the most important thing. When you look at this team, here's something I want to say that we have not been able to say for a very long time. The Jets really are a quarterback away from being a viable contender. Like, we're kind of stocked. Now, not perfectly. We have questions on the offensive line. We got lots of guys coming back. It's the healthy thing with them. We just don't know. Becton, AVT, Max Mitchell, those kinds of guys. Well, you can still address that in the offseason. But as far as running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and defense, this team, if we get a quarterback on the, of the caliber of the guys I was just talking about, and they play all year for you, we're legitimately a Super Bowl contender. If not, we're at least a playoff contender, right? And that's not something that we could say. Just think a couple years ago when we were talking about paying Kirk Cousins to come here. Remember when Kirk Cousins used us as a leveraging tool? Remember that? Well, the reason he didn't come here, you look around our roster, we had Robbie Anderson, we had nothing here. The defense was piss poor. We had almost no offensive weapons to speak of, and our offensive line was all but ignored by Mike McCagney. 2 offensive line draft picks in 5 drafts. So what do you think of that? So when Kirk Cousins is looking at this team, he's thinking, no way, I'm going to get crushed. I got nobody to throw to, and the defense can't give me the ball. So what the hell am I going to go there for? That is completely different now. And Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr could look at this team and think, I can do it with them. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, Berrios, if Corey Davis, whether or not. You got really good tight ends all the way down to Ruckert, who I think is probably the best tight end on the roster and could really break out in year 2. But you got Ruckert, you got Yeboah, you got Conklin, you got Uzoma. We have a nice tight end group. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Bam Knight, whoever we keep, Ty Johnson and Robinson. You could look at this team and think, oh yeah, I could light it up with that group. And that's not always the case. So we're going to have to really make this we're going to have to do this right. We're really going to have to do this one right, man. You can't take a swing, in the wrong direction. And to dig into that, let's get into this week's Intelligent Gripe. So yeah, man, I mean, look, Robert Saleh is known to be best friends with the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur. They're best buddies, best man in each other's weddings and all that kind of stuff. They've been friends forever. They hang out together. They chit-chat. They talk. If you think, the whole tampering thing, yeah. If you think they don't talk to each other about what's going on, you're drunk, okay? These guys talk. They hang out on the weekend. So I would be willing to bet Robert Saleh has the inside track on what's really going on with their thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. Now, Matt LaFleur is not going to show his whole hand and all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure it's just on the level. The only downside to that is Robert Saleh did just fire his little brother, and Matt LaFleur could be secretly harboring some resentment and could want to stick it right in our backside, let's call it, to make us pay. He could. Now, do I think it? I don't know. I don't know Matt LaFleur. Is he a resentful guy? Does he hold grudges? I don't know. I mean, look, Mike LaFleur landed on his feet. He's got a great job as the offensive coordinator for Sean McVay. He's not going to be responsible for calling the plays or anything. I'm sure LaFleur will do great over there. It's the family he comes from, the offensive family, right? He's already been with McVay in Washington, so there's lots of niceties, over there. Nobody's thinking that he got, that he ended up landing in a terrible spot, but that doesn't matter. Matt LaFleur could feel like his brother was wronged by Robert Saleh and the Jets and want to, how about that? Because here's the issue. It was reported this week that the New York Jets have been sniffing around Derek Carr, sniffing around, seeing what's going on. Now, they didn't talk about it last week, as they told us. They didn't even mention his name, of course. But this week, they're sniffing around the Derek Carr situation. What's it going to take to get this guy? Now, if you have a little handshake deal with Matt LaFleur, like, hey, look, we're going to move on. We're going to go with Jordan Love. We're going to get rid of him. We want to get his cap number off the books and everything. We're willing to take, like a first. I mean, obviously, he's not the GM, but he has intimate knowledge, of course. So let's say they have a handshake deal that says, all right, here's the picks we want, and we'll be willing to do it as soon as the league year starts. So they have that handshake deal. But what if they have the opportunity February 10th? They're chit-chatting with McDaniels and Davis over there, and they can get him for, let's just say, a second and a fifth. Let's say you can get Derek Carr for a second and a fifth. The money's fine. You know he's going to work. The deal could be done. Derek Carr said, I'm willing to go there. Everything's good. But you don't do it because you have the handshake deal with Aaron Rodgers. I have to say, I think that would be a poor decision. Now, Aaron Rodgers might be the best fit. Again, highly successful history with Nathaniel Hackett. The Zach Wilson connection. There's just so much there. So much meat on that bone. And you got the inside scoop and everything. But again, I think that if you have the opportunity to get Derek Carr for whatever it is, even if it's one first, whatever it is, you can get it's all done. All you have to do is sign the dotted line. I think they should do it. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, man. And if you pass on Derek Carr and then anything goes awry in the next two, what if Aaron Rodgers says, you know what, on second thought, I'm going to retire. Now you got no Derek Carr, you got no Aaron Rodgers, and, somebody offered Jimmy G money and Baker Mayfield signed, and then you're left with Jameis Winston. I am of the belief that if Derek Carr is available, you get him. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't prefer. I think Aaron Rodgers might be the best fit. But I don't think you can pass up the Derek Carr situation if you have a legitimate opportunity. If all you got to do is sign the dotted line, the compensation's fine, the money's fine, he's agreed, everything's there, I think you got to sign the dotted line. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Promises, man. And then again, I'm still a little bit nervous about that Mike LaFleur thing. I am. I have to admit. Now, that's how I'm built. A little bit cynical, a little bit sketchy. I'm a little worrisome. That's who I am. So that's part of what I'm thinking. At the same time, I just don't know. Even without that, I think it would be imperative. You have the opportunity to get a quarterback of Derek Carr's caliber, you bring him in because you never know what can happen. Now, if you don't, if Derek Carr doesn't want to come here or whatever, fine. That's fine. You take your shot. You definitely explore it and see what it's going to take, and you have your meetings and everything. But if not, I think you got to do it. I think you got to do it. I think you have to grab Derek Carr and just leave the Aaron Rodgers thing for, hey, no thanks, but no thanks kind of thing. It could have been great, but Nathaniel Hackett and Derek Carr are going to work just as well together. We have tons of weapons for Derek Carr to exploit. I think it's more than enough. Let me know what you think. As much as I think Aaron Rodgers would be great here, I think you cannot ignore the opportunity to get Derek Carr, and that is the intelligent gripe. So yeah, what do you think? You got Aaron Rodgers in the brain, right? You think, no, that's the guy I want. I hear you. I do. I think that's probably the best case scenario. Aaron Rodgers, number one, Aaron Rodgers is better than Derek Carr. You have to factor that in. But he's almost 10 years older. He did have the dip. He's going to cost potentially 2 firsts, and he could retire at any minute. What if he retires after 1 season? We don't win a Super Bowl, then it's not worth anything. Maybe the year he can mess with Zach and help Zach out, maybe that's fine. But I don't know, man. It's a little spooky. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this one. This is an important one. I'm very, very curious when you look at it through this lens. It's going to be interesting. Now, we have so much more to talk about, but I want to let you guys know, Dom C and myself, we're going down to Mobile, Alabama to check out the Senior Bowl. We're going to give you guys all sorts of backstage looks and exclusive content. Obviously, we'll be able to film the practices and get you guys all sorts of fun stuff, especially the beanbaggers. You guys are going to get tons, just daily extra content for the beanbaggers from the Senior Bowl. And hey, I'm going to try to get into the combine too. Why not? Wouldn't that be great? Getting us in the combine. Woo! I think that would be fantastic. But guys, I want to thank you for watching. This has been episode 102. Forever will be remembered as the Bell's Palsy episode, where I can't even believe I made it through it. It's getting worse like as I talk here. But I thank you for being here, guys. I look forward to your comments. And as always, go Jets.